without her getting mad and overreacting.
Was the heartbreaking and deeply hidden story of Amy Slaton. One of the central figures of TLC's hit reality series 1000 Delby's Sisters is far more tragic than what fans were ever allowed to witness on their television screens. Because behind the carefully edited episodes filled with stage drama, rehearsed conflicts, and weight loss milestones, there existed a darker, more painful reality that the network never wanted the world to see. A reality in which Amy, who had once been adored for her silly sense of humor, her friendly nature, and her determination to lose weight not only for herself, but for the family she dreamed of raising, found herself crumbling under the weight of fame, its toxic relationships, online scrutiny, and, most devastatingly, the loss of custody of her beloved children, Glenn and Gage, a loss so catastrophic that when cameras captured her raw breakdown in real time, TLC executives immediately decided to bury the footage forever, fearing the public backlash that would surely erupt if viewers saw the unpolished truth of a mother destroyed by the very system that claimed to be telling her story. And to truly understand how Amy reached that point, one must look back at her life long before the show. To a childhood defined by poverty, ridicule, a constant struggle with food addiction that became her comfort and her curse, shaping her identity as the funny fat girl who made jokes to hide the pain of being judged, a survival mechanism that carried her into adulthood but also made her an easy target for a network eager to exploit vulnerability for ratings. Because when TLC discovered the Slaton sisters on YouTube, they didn't just see two women struggling with obesity. They saw a goldmine of entertainment wrapped in Southern charm, humor, and tragedy. And while Amy believed that joining the show would be her ticket to a better life, a chance to lose weight, build confidence, and finally have the family she always wanted, the reality was far different. Because every step forward she made in her personal journey was overshadowed by the way producers twisted her setbacks into drama. Every laugh she shared was repackaged into memes that strangers used to mock her. And every time she cried, it was magnified on national television for millions to consume. And while viewers thought they were cheering her on, Amy was quietly being broken down, especially after marrying her longtime partner, Michael Halterman. Because although he initially appeared supportive, insiders reveal that he resented the cameras, hated the exposure, and grew increasingly distant as Amy embraced fame, creating a volatile mix of jealousy and exhaustion that poisoned their relationship. And when Amy became pregnant with her first child, Gage, fans celebrated it as a dream come true. But behind closed doors, pregnancy brought new pressures. With Amy struggling to balance her health, the demands of filming, and the constant online scrutiny that dissected her every move. While Michael reportedly became short-tempered, complaining about the cameras in their home and the way producers seemed to favor Amy as the star while he was painted as a passive background figure, and as their marriage cracked under the weight of stress, money disputes, and parenting disagreements, Amy found herself more isolated than ever, clinging to her sons as her reason to keep going. But even that love was soon weaponized against her. Because when arguments escalated and concerns about the home environment reached Child Protective Services, the unthinkable happened. Amy, despite her fierce devotion, was told she could not have full custody of her children, and when the news was delivered while filming, the cameras captured her devastation in its purest, most unbearable form. Her sobs echoing across the set as she cried out that she could not live without her babies, collapsing onto the floor as her entire world shattered. A moment so raw that even hardened crew members were moved to tears. Yet instead of offering comfort, the cameras kept rolling, because in the brutal economy of reality TV, every tear is content. Every breakdown is potential ratings gold. And only later, when executives saw the footage, did they realize it was too dangerous to air? Not because they cared about Amy's dignity, but because they feared the backlash that would come from exposing their exploitation so blatantly. And so they buried it, replacing the most human moment of Amy's life with staged family fights, edited sound bites, and lighter storylines that preserved the illusion of drama without revealing the devastation lurking beneath. But whispers of what really happened could not be silenced forever, because insiders who had worked closely with the family began leaking details, describing the footage as the most gut-wrenching material they had ever filmed. And as these rumors spread among fans, questions arose about what really goes on behind the scenes of shows like One Susu Grows We Sisters, where vulnerable people are thrust into the spotlight and left to crumble under pressure while networks profit from their pain. And the more one looks into Amy's story, the clearer it becomes that her collapse was not an isolated moment, but the culmination of years of manipulation, exhaustion, and exploitation, from the way producers encouraged conflict between her and Tammy for the sake of drama, to the way executives pressured her to keep filming even when she was postpartum and struggling to adjust to motherhood, to the way her body, her home, and her children were all transformed into plot devices that could be edited, packaged, and sold to millions of viewers who thought they were watching reality but were, in fact, consuming a distorted performance of suffering. And Amy, who had entered the show with hope and vulnerability, found herself trapped in a nightmare where the more she gave of herself, the more the network took, until finally she had nothing left but grief, exhaustion, and the haunting absence of her children. And though fans continued to cheer her on during episodes filled with manufactured humor and rehearsed chaos, the truth was that Amy was broken, privately mourning the loss of her family while publicly performing resilience for a show that had stolen everything that truly mattered. And the tragedy of it all is not only that TLC chose to erase her pain from the narrative, but that they conditioned viewers to believe they were seeing her authentic journey, when in fact, the most important chapter was hidden, locked away in an archive that may never see the light of day. And so Amy Slaton's story becomes not just the story of a woman who lost custody of her children, but a cautionary tale about the dangers of turning real people into entertainment. A reminder that behind every laugh track and dramatic cliffhanger lies a human being whose pain cannot be edited away. And though TLC may have buried the footage to protect their image, they cannot erase the truth revealed by those who were there. That in the end, Amy Slaton was not destroyed by her weight or by her marriage or even by the custody battle, but by the very machine that promised to tell her story. A machine that chewed her up, filmed her collapse, and then decided the world didn't need to see the truth of a mother's heartbreak, leaving behind only whispers, speculation, and a haunting reminder that sometimes the greatest tragedy is not what we see on screen, but what we are never allowed to see at all.
You just came from back there pouting and angry. That wasn't the energy you was giving earlier.
Amy Slaton's story has always been sold to the world as entertainment, but the truth behind the cameras is darker, more twisted, far more heartbreaking than the edited episodes of 1000 LB Sisters will ever allow viewers to see. 'Cause while TLC presented a version of her life carefully tailored to create drama without crossing into pure tragedy, the network deliberately concealed the most gut-wrenching moment of her existence. It's the day she collapsed in agony, believing she had lost her children forever. A breakdown so raw, so disturbing, and so real that even hardened crew members whispered afterward that they had never witnessed anything like it. A moment that could have changed the way fans saw Amy, the show, and reality television as a whole. But one that was instead locked away in the vaults of TLC's boardrooms, buried not to protect Amy, but to protect the brand and the millions of dollars generated by turning human suffering into prime-time spectacle. And that choice, cold, calculated, and ruthless, became the pivot point that transformed Amy from A quirky, flawed reality star into a victim of both her fame and a system that thrives on exploiting the vulnerable. A decision that fans are only now beginning to piece together as rumors of the hidden footage spread across forums, social media pages, and whispered insider accounts, igniting outrage and forcing difficult questions about what else has been kept from the audience who thought they were seeing the truth. Because Amy's meltdown wasn't just another scene on the cutting room floor. It was the culmination of months of pressure as her marriage to Michael Halterman disintegrated. As custody battles over her sons Glenn and Gage chipped away at her sense of stability as the network continued to push cameras into her face when she needed privacy. And as her own identity as a mother was ripped apart by legal systems that didn't care about her fame, her weight loss struggles, or her sacrifices only, about paperwork and procedure. And when she collapsed, sobbing uncontrollably, pleading to keep her children, gasping through tears that she couldn't survive without them. It was the moment the illusion of reality TV fun shattered and turned into something too uncomfortable to monetize, something that would force viewers to question whether laughing at the Slaton sisters had been complicit in their suffering. And TLC, recognizing the danger, chose to cut, hide, and rewrite, showing instead a watered-down narrative of Amy overcoming separation while stripping away the rawest evidence of how much she was breaking. For Amy, the consequences were devastating. What should have been a turning point toward healing became instead a silent scar. A trauma she carried alone while the network cashed checks. A fracture that destroyed her already fragile marriage, pushed her deeper into self-doubt, and left her retreating from the lively, bubbly personality fans once adored into a guarded, wounded figure who distrusted the very medium that had given her fame. Friends and family close to her described that period as the moment she was truly broken. And while TLC's executives congratulated themselves for avoiding controversy, Amy's real life spiraled into a storm of custody hearings, divorce, papers, and lonely nights where the cameras no longer cared. Fans, of course, never saw this. They saw edited drama. Arguments staged for effect, moments of reconciliation scripted by producers, and the occasional happy family outing inserted to balance the tone, but they never saw the tears that stained Amy's pillow. The anxiety that left her shaking at court dates. The guilt that gnawed at her when she felt she had failed as a mother. And as whispers of the lost footage began to leak, fans felt betrayed. Realizing they had been consuming a manufactured illusion, not the authentic story they believed. They were following from season 1, back when Amy and Tammy were still YouTubers dreaming of fame. Back when Amy's biggest goals were simple: become a mother, lose weight, and build a family life better than the one she had known as a child. But fame, once achieved, is never simple. And the very network that had promised her opportunities turned her into a liability once her story grew too real. Because reality TV thrives on spectacle, not genuine suffering. When Amy laughed or cried, in manageable doses, it was content. But when she collapsed, screaming for her children, was liability, and in that choice to suppress her reality, TLC revealed the rot at the core of the industry, its willingness to profit from trauma only, so long as it remains entertaining, never when it exposes the humanity of its stars too nakedly, too painfully. This betrayal bleeds into the present, where Amy continues to fight not just for custody, but for her dignity, her stability, and her ability to prove to fans, to critics, and perhaps most of all to herself, that she is still a mother worthy of respect, that she can rise from the wreckage of failed marriages, bad decisions, and public humiliation to create something resembling normalcy for her sons. And yet, even in 2024 and 2025, new scandals kept circling her name. From the infamous camel biting incident at the zoo that led to dangerous speculation about her children's safety, to her short-lived arrests alongside her new fiancé, Brian Scott Levern, for alleged drug use and child endangerment, to her whirlwind engagement after just 5 months of dating. a decision criticized by her own family as reckless and unsafe for the children, though Amy defended it as a desperate attempt to rebuild the family unit she had lost with Michael. Still, amid the chaos, there are glimmers of resilience. It's when Amy posted on Instagram about playing tennis with her boys, proudly displaying a child-sized racket meant for ages 4 to 6, a moment fans seized upon as evidence that she was trying, however imperfectly, to guide her sons toward healthier habits, to bond with them through exercise and joy rather than trauma. And while skeptics mocked her parenting choices online, others rallied to her defense, urging her to keep fighting, keep growing, and keep proving the doubters wrong. Because beneath all the scandals, Amy's love for Gage and Glenn remains the through line of her life. The anchor that pulled her into weight loss in the first place, the force that keeps her pushing forward despite arrests, divorces, and betrayals. The reason she can still smile for a photo and say she's hopeful, but that doesn't erase the scars of what was buried. The day the cameras rolled on her devastation and executives decided the world didn't deserve to see it. A decision that robbed her of validation, robbed fans of the truth, and robbed reality TV of the chance to confront its own abusive mechanics. Instead, the cycle continued. The profits rolled in. And Amy's personal pain became just another piece of hidden history in TLC's vault. Joining countless other stories of exploited child stars, addicts, hoarders, and struggling families, whose darkest moments were twisted into entertainment or erased entirely when they became too raw to air. So when Amy posts a cheerful photo captioned, "I hope the rain clears up soon," as she prepares to play tennis with her boys, the surface image may look like another quirky, harmless update. But those who know the history see more. They see a woman clawing back fragments of her motherhood. A woman haunted by the memory of losing her kids, even temporarily. A woman whose love life choices may be chaotic, but whose devotion to her sons is undeniable. A woman determined to prove that even after being branded a liability, after being silenced by a network, after being mocked by strangers, she is still standing, still fighting, and still trying to write her own narrative rather than let producers dictate it. The scandal of Amy Slaton's buried breakdown is bigger than one woman. Though it's a case study in how reality television operates, how networks select which truths the world is allowed to see, how suffering is packaged or hidden depending on its profitability, and how stars like Amy are left with the fallout while executives move on to the next spectacle. And fans, now increasingly skeptical, are beginning to demand transparency. Beginning to ask how many other moments of truth have been cut, how many other breakdowns were smoothed over, how much of what they think they know about the Slaton family is nothing more than smoke and mirrors. And perhaps that is the cruelest part of all, that the very audience whose loyalty made 1,000 Delby sisters a success, whose engagement fueled TLC's profits, has been denied the unfiltered truth. It's been fed only fragments. While Amy, the beating heart of this series, was left carrying the unspoken weight of her most devastating moment, a weight that destroyed her marriage, fractured her confidence, and reshaped her forever, even as the show continued without missing a beat. Now, as she holds on to custody of Gage and Glenn, as she posts pictures of brunches and tennis rackets, as she smiles beside Brian despite whispers about his background, Amy remains both a survivor and a cautionary tale, proof of how fame can both elevate and annihilate, how reality TV can both empower and exploit, and how the most important parts of someone's story can be erased when they don't serve the narrative. And so the question lingers, heavy and unavoidable. If Amy's most tragic moment could be buried so easily, what else don't we know? What else has been hidden? And how many more stars are out there, carrying the silent scars of stories the world was never allowed to